Well, they've been all over television talking about that. And then there's, of course, this, Trump's tweet. He said, how can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with leaking James Comey of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for his wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during investigation? Now, the reality is, of course, that money was given to McCabe's wife. That's the kind of insider stuff that I can't stand. And so she runs all the people in Washington know her through the cocktail circuit. They pour money into that. And so pointing that out as something that is an annoying part of Washington is fair enough. Saying that that decision to get the money had something to do with an investigation that started years later, well, that makes no sense at all. But the one thing that is clear is Donald Trump publicly criticizing McCabe and of course, the campaign overall to get rid of him. Now, here comes the latest twist, which is quite remarkable, but now knowing Donald Trump, perhaps not surprising. So, when James Comey was fired, apparently Donald Trump was enraged that he then got on a government plane back to L.A. because he found out while watching TV in Los Angeles about to give a speech about the FBI here in L.A. And then he's fired, so he gets back on the plane that brought him and comes home. But Trump thinks this is outrageous, calls McCabe, who's now in charge of the FBI because Comey's just been fired, and says, why did you let him get on an FBI plane? McCabe says, well, I didn't know anything about that. But if I had known, I would have let him get back on the plane because that's the plane he came in on. And Trump is then furious, and then this happens. The president was silent for a moment and then turned on McCabe, suggesting he ask his wife how it feels to be a loser. An apparent reference to a failed campaign for state office in Virginia that McCabe's wife made in 2015, McCabe replied, okay, sir. Trump then hung up the phone. We've got a lunatic in office. Who says that to anyone who, by the way, would be a part of your government? But the second part of it is someone who you think, right or wrong, is in your delusional mind set against you. Then why would you say that to him? Because he has no sense at all. Because he can't help himself. He has verbal diarrhea. He just says whatever comes to the top of his mind. Oh, yeah, your wife's a loser. What kind of a person says that? Could you imagine if Obama had said that to the acting director of the FBI? Oh, yeah, your wife's a loser. Oh, my God. Imagine what Fox News would have done to him. But now Fox News is in the business of shredding the FBI, shredding the rule of law. Law and order, we never meant that. No, we meant that the FBI, if it's doing our bidding, is fine. But if they're actually investigating serious allegations against a Republican, no, fire everyone in the building. Well, now McCabe is gone. There are reports that Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General at the Justice Department, might be next, and the purge continues. So if you let these guys purge all of the people they perceive to be their opponents, whether it's political opponents, or in this case, in their perception, legal opponents, people who might investigate them, well, then we no longer have a democracy. And today, with McCabe, quote-unquote, stepping aside, the White House comically says that they had nothing to do with it, part of that purge continues. These are dark times in America. If they get to Rosenstein and Mueller, there has to be immediate impeachment proceedings. But with the Republicans now ordered by their donors, who are incredibly happy about the trillions of dollars they got in tax cuts, told to back Donald Trump, that doesn't seem likely. At this point, I don't know who else he could push out or fire and still have the Republicans back him. But given how ecstatic the donors are about the trillions of dollars they just took from us, I'm not sure there's a good answer to that. He might be able to fire anyone and still have the Republicans back him. In which case, if we're going to have any rule of law at all, and we're going to have a democracy, well, then you're going to have to make that decision in 2018 based on your vote for Congress. We'll see. There's still a lot more dominoes here, but another domino fell today, and it is not good news. Okay. Now, let's go to, speaking of Rosenstein, let's go to that story. For a while now, conservatives, right-wingers on social media have been doing hashtag release the memo. At first when I saw it, I thought, wow, is this a classified memo they have from the FBI? Or any kind of information they have from intelligence officials about what Donald Trump did or did not do? They want it released, so I imagine it's good news for Trump. So I was curious about it. Well, turns out, no. It does have some classified information according to the FBI, but it doesn't come from the FBI. It's a memo written by Republicans. And they want it released because they think that proves that they are right, because other Republicans wrote a memo saying they don't like the Justice Department investigating Donald Trump. That does not appear to be persuasive evidence, but let's dive into the details to find out more. We'll go to the New York Times here. They explain a secret, highly contentious Republican memo reveals that Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein approved an application to extend surveillance of a former Trump campaign associate shortly after taking office last spring, according to 3 people familiar with it. I suppose this is the aha moment for right-wingers. They're like, aha! So he investigated someone connected to Donald Trump. Yes, he apparently extended that investigation. And, you see, for that to be interesting, you then have to follow it up with, and he shouldn't have because it was wrong, because that guy didn't do it, and here's the rest of the information. But they don't have that. They're just like, aha! He asked for an investigation. That's kind of his job as Deputy Attorney General. This is your big aha. These guys are unreal. All right, more details. The renewal shows that the Justice Department, under President Trump, saw reason to believe that the associate, Carter Page, was acting as a Russian agent. But the reference to Mr. Rosenstein's actions in the memo, a much disputed document that paints the investigation into Russian election meddling as tainted from the start, indicates that Republicans may be moving to seize on his role as they seek to undermine the inquiry. So, there is already a warrant to investigate Carter Page, who was part of the Trump campaign, because they're concerned he might be a Russian agent. They have good enough evidence that they got a warrant from a court, and they didn't do it without a warrant, which unfortunately happens all the time in America. They got a warrant, they did an investigation as they should. Rosenstein gets into office, even though he's appointed as part of the Trump government, says, well, they do have evidence that this guy's a Russian agent, and they already had a warrant. I'm going to continue that warrant to make sure that he is or is not a Russian agent, and we know because that's my job at the Justice Department. Republicans seize on that and go, aha! Again, aha what? Aha what? Do you have evidence that Carter Page is not a Russian agent? Nope, they don't have that evidence. Well, do you have evidence that this memo was written by the FBI about secret plots? Nope. Well, who wrote the memo? The Republicans wrote the memo. So what? So what? So some of your own guys wrote a memo saying they don't like Rod Rosenstein because he's doing his job. Wow, hashtag release the memo. Preposterous. Now, the reason the FBI claims they're concerned is because they think in doing so, they might reveal classified information, and they won't show the FBI what's in the memo. The FBI is saying, well, look, if there's no classified information, then that's not an issue. Can we see it? They're like, oh, no way. We're not going to show it to you. I mean, now the Republicans refuse to work with their own Justice Department. All of this is madness. Okay, so more from the New York Times. No information has publicly emerged that the Justice Department or the FBI did anything improper while seeking the surveillance warrant involving Mr. Page. That has not emerged because it does not exist. But right-wingers go, well, if you got a warrant on a Trump campaign official, by definition it must have been wrong. Based on what evidence? Based on the fact that you're in love with Donald Trump. Okay, but that's not evidence. Okay, Mr. Trump is now again telling associates that he is frustrated with Mr. Rosenstein, according to one official familiar with the conversations. In other words, here we go. Just got rid of McCabe, earlier got rid of Comey, Now let's go get Rosenstein, who appointed Mueller, so then we can take out Mueller. Why? Because Trump knows that if you have a real investigation of him, you will find out all of his connections to the Russians. Now, some Trump followers and other knuckleheads in the country might not be convinced because they think, oh no, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I can give you a laundry list of evidence, and I have done so throughout this last year. 12, 24, 36 pieces of public evidence that is exceedingly clear. Now, that doesn't mean you have a smoking gun. That doesn't mean you can convict him. That doesn't mean you can impeach him. That's why they're having an investigation. Okay? But no, people say, no, the fact that he's trying to fire everyone during the investigation, that doesn't mean anything. Really? Okay, if you're a Republican and Obama's being investigated and he fires the FBI director investigating him, now he moves aside the deputy director that has supported him. Now talking about firing the deputy attorney general and has agitated publicly to fire the special counsel investigating him. If Obama had done all of that, or Clinton had done all of that, what do you think your reaction would be? Oh my God, we knew it! We knew it! He's the most corrupt guy there is in the world. Impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. Come on, it's super obvious. It's frustrating having these nonsense debates with people who are not honest actors. Okay, now we go to another part of this, which is another person involved with the Justice Department. They explained, but Stephen E. Boyd, an assistant attorney general, warned in a letter last week to the committee's chairman, Representative Devin Nunes of California, that it would be extraordinarily reckless to release a memo drawing on classified information without official review, and pleaded with the committee to consult the Justice Department. So that's an assistant attorney general doing his job, saying, hey, look, at least show us the memo, and if there's no classified information, have at it, Hoss. But we don't know if you're releasing classified information. Oh, I don't want to work for the Justice Department. You guys like to investigate us because maybe our leader did something terribly illegal. Money laundering. Anyway, according to Bloomberg, when Trump found out about Boyd saying that it would be reckless, he, quote, erupted in anger. Of course he did. He had somebody else blocking his attempts to block justice. So, again, explaining here the Justice Department's point of view, he said the department was unaware of any wrongdoing related to the FISA process, Boyd did. Now, one more piece of information here. The White House has made it clear to the Justice Department in recent days that it wants the Republican memo to be made public. In other words, we don't care if there's classified info in it. We erupt in anger if the FBI or the Justice Department suggests that it might. We just want you to release it so that we can use it to smear everyone else in the Justice Department. Guy's so obviously guilty. You're unbelievable if you think he's not guilty. No. Innocent people fire every investigator that investigates them all the time. All the time. It's a common occurrence. Now, this whole thing about, Carter Page and the surveillance. Did Rosenstein dream this up, even though he's part of the Trump government? Well, we've got Asha Rangappa, who's a former FBI special agent, explaining how that can't possibly be true. Watch.
This is exactly an example of how this memo is inaccurate and misleading. So, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein actually doesn't have the authority to extend any kind of surveillance at all. The Department of Justice has to go into a FISA court and request an extension of any surveillance that's ongoing. Now, the Deputy Attorney General might sign off on allowing their attorneys to go into court to ask for it, but the ultimate decision on that would be made by a judge. And here's an important point, John. When there's surveillance on a U.S. person, the Department of Justice has to go in every 90 days and show the court that they are getting valuable foreign intelligence information in order for that surveillance to be extended. Now, the Carter Page surveillance began in September. Rosenstein came on board in March. That means that this FISA had already been extended before Rosenstein even came on the picture, and at that The judge found that this surveillance was actually collecting valuable foreign intelligence information. So it was a valid FISA. There was a reason to have it in place. So this is the kind of thing where these details need to be explained. Otherwise, they completely misconstrue what was happening.
And they misconstrue it on purpose, obviously, because they're politically biased and hacks, the Republicans defending Donald Trump. So just so you're absolutely clear, they go to a FISA court and get a warrant, what you're actually supposed to do. Then in September is when they receive it. At some point it is renewed. So the court says, wow, you actually do have information on this guy. Keep investigating him because we think he might be a Russian agent. Then Rosenstein comes in March. They got the original one in September, got renewed at one point. Then Rosenstein comes in at March as part of the Trump administration, and he says, well, all right, I guess you have good info on this, so I'm going to ask to extend the warrant again. And the court says you continue to have good enough information that Carter Page might be a Russian agent, so continue to investigate him. So that's the big crime of Rosenstein, according to the Republicans. Oh my God, he did his job and extended a warrant on a guy that the court thinks might be a Russian agent tied to our government. But they don't want him to do his job. They want to fire anyone who will do their job because they don't believe in the rule of law. All they care about is protecting their own teammate, Donald Trump, and they're willing to do anything and pretty much set our democracy on fire to accomplish their mission. Okay. Now we turn to a lighter topic about what an idiot Donald Trump is. Now that's fairly normal, but it goes towards proving an important point about facts. All right, so let's do it. Donald Trump went to Davos, and then on that trip he talked to Piers Morgan, said a lot of interesting things on British television. First of all, he repeated his claim that, quote, I'm a stable genius. Well, at least he took very out this time. In a tweet, he had said that he was a very stable genius and that he was like a smart person. It was the third time he said he was like a smart person, except that time he wrote it down. Well, then he had other parts of the interview that makes us question whether that might actually be true. Well, let's find out what he thinks about climate change.
Do you believe in climate change? Do you think it exists?
There is a cooling and there's a heating. I mean, look, it used to not be climate change. It used to be global warming, right? That wasn't working too well because it was getting too cold all over the place. The ice caps were going to melt. They were going to be gone by now, but now they're setting records, okay? They're at a record level. You know, I'm like a smart person.
The ice caps are at a record level. In fact, let me give you that quote. The ice caps were going to melt. They were going to be gone by now. Who said that? No one said that. But now they're setting records. They're at a record level. Record for what? First of all, everything has to be emphatic with Trump. These are big, beautiful, soft towels. Referring to paper towels that were wrapped in plastic. The ice caps. They're setting records. Records for what? Well, it turns out, though, I got to give them credit. They are setting records, just not in the way that he anticipated. Now, according to HuffPost, and more importantly, they're reporting on what NASA said, the polar ice caps are breaking records for melting. And last year, NASA reported that sea ice in both the Arctic and the Antarctic was at a record low, again, due to melting. The reason why you guys voted in a Young Turks poll that Donald Trump is actually dumber than George W. Bush is because you got a sense from Bush that he realized he wasn't that bright. Trump has no idea. The ice caps are at a record. It's a record for melting. Okay, whatever. It's still a record. It's a big, beautiful record. Oh. All right. Ice on the ocean and on land are both disappearing rapidly, according to Rutgers University climate scientist Jennifer Fran. And we know why. Increasing greenhouse gases from burning fossil fuels that trap more heat and melt the ice. But that is a scientist, so Trump, of course, will think that it's not real, whereas Republican propaganda paid for by the fossil fuel industry in his mind is the real news. Donald Trump says There's a cooling and there's a heating, as you just saw. I mean, look, it used to be not climate change, it used to be global warming, right? That wasn't working too well because it was getting too cold all over the place. All right, well, let's investigate whether it is in fact getting too cold all over the place. Climate change, according to NASA, refers to a broad range of global phenomenon created predominantly by burning fossil fuels. The increasing average temperature of the Earth, that is global warming, is one key result. Others are rising sea levels and a growing trend toward extreme weather and weather anomalies linked to that. So, in other words, did the scientists then say, we were wrong about global warming, we retract that? No, that never happened. They said, yes, global warming is real, and we can show it to you in the numbers, which I'm about to. But on top of that, there are other events that happen because of climate change you should be aware of. Extreme droughts, extreme hurricanes and storms. But again, Donald Trump has never bothered to investigate any of this. He has no intellectual curiosity, besides which he's fundamentally corrupt, and as long as he's being funded by the fossil fuel industry, he's perfectly happy to ignore facts. But here, our job is to give you facts, so let's do it. As for things getting too cold all over the place, there hasn't been a cooler than average year since 1976. According to more than 135 years of temperature records kept by NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, I know there's some lunatics who think, oh, you can't trust NASA, they're a bunch of scientists. And they are part of a Chinese hoax, even though they're NASA. Well, that doesn't really matter. The temperatures are clear. Everybody knows the temperatures. You could ask any scientist you like what the temperatures were for all those years. And it continues to get hotter and hotter and hotter. That's a fact. So disputing that fact. You can claim, oh, no, it's just a coincidence, and it's not man-made. It just happens to be happening. First of all, then you should do something about it anyway and give us your alternate hypothesis as to why it's happening. Instead, it could be warming, it could be cooling, there's cold all over the place. Last year was Earth's second hottest on record. The world's oceans were the hottest ever recorded in 2017. Does not look like that is cold all over the place. I've got more facts. The last 4 years have been the globe's 4 hottest on record, according to NOAA. That is, again, our government, not the Chinese government saying that. That's our scientists, and by the way, all of the world's scientists. So there's no dispute that there is, in fact, global warming on a macro scale, and obviously Trump has no idea what the difference between the weather and climate is. So as soon as he sees snow, he's like, I knew it. I knew there was no global warming.
You know, I'm like a smart person.
No, you're actually one of the dumbest people that has ever been in public office or in the public sphere, period. I mean, are you positive that other reality show stars, and that's what he is, were dumber than him? I mean, I would argue that he was among the dumbest reality show stars we had, let alone people in office. But, you know, that's him on the ice caps. And I got one last quote for you on the idea of the environment overall. He says, he does believe in, quote, clean air. I believe in crystal clear, beautiful water. I believe in just having good cleanliness in all. Oh, Jesus Christ. This is not about whether you keep your room clear. Okay, so I like to wash my hands. I like cleanliness. I like big, beautiful water, like the one that surrounds Puerto Rico. Okay, but it is true that he does like things that are clean, including clean coal, because he said this once.
We've ended the war on beautiful, clean coal, and it's just been announced that a second brand new coal mine where they're going to take out clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it, is opening.
You know, I'm like a smart person.
They're going to take out the coal and then clean it. That's what he thinks clean coal is. One of the dumbest guys in America. And if you voted for him, and you see all this evidence, and you're still proud, well, apparently he's got competition. We'll be right back.
The ice caps were going to melt. They were going to be gone by now, but now they're setting records. Okay, they're at a record level.
Brand new coal mine where they're going to take out clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it.
You know, I'm like a smart person.
So I almost got into a fight. We're back in the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur here. I almost got into a fight over the weekend with a Trump supporter. I'll tell you why in the post game, and I'm just amazed by them. Amazed. So TYTnetwork.com/join to hear the post game that I'll have with Anna later after the Young Turks Rebel headquarters, where we will be talking to Sheriff Joe Arpaio's opponent in the Arizona Senate race. That should be very interesting. Don't miss that at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. All right, Jim Laughter writes in, it's good to see Dan Rather again. Well, here, brother. Agreed. Not that Don writes in, have a party on the East Coast for us poor folk. No, look, there's a couple of things there, Don. One, or if we sell out the tickets, then we'll make an announcement about what we're going to do next about that party in LA. And two, if it works, I want to do rallies / parties in all different areas of the country. So let's see how the one in LA goes, and not just the East Coast, but the middle of the country, etc. You know where I want to go? I want to go to Kentucky. We're coming. So let's see how this one goes. Though TYTnetwork.com/party to buy tickets. The VIP tickets are almost all out. So probably they'll be out in a couple of days. So that's $100 if you want to do the meet and greet and see us, take pictures, etc. And then it's just $10 for general admission. We're just trying to get folks to come and do a fun event. TYTnetwork.com/party. You got it. All right. Patrick McGinn says, seems like Trump wants the FBI to be like the old KGB in Russia, loyal to do his bidding. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is he thinks he's still running a family business. I just tell them what to do, and they do it. Why won't they do it? If they don't do it, I fire them. Well, it's not your business. It's the whole country. It doesn't work that way. There's separation of powers, and there's rule of law. A, he's too dumb to understand that. B, he's too corrupt. He doesn't want to understand that. He wants to make sure he ends the investigation. All right, let's go over here and do some stories about policy. So Donald Trump has a person that he is likely to nominate to be the commissioner of the IRS. Now, if history is any guide, he will pick someone who will try to destroy the IRS. He did similar things with the EPA, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, and the list goes on and on. And, of course, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. If someone said they were looking to destroy that agency, he would nominate their head. Nominate them as the head of that agency. Scott Pruitt, for example, sued the EPA 14 times. He's now the head of the EPA. Rick Perry said we should eliminate the Department of Energy. He's now the head of the Department of Energy. You get it. So his new pick is Charles Rettig, we believe, to be the commissioner. Now, he's not in yet. If he is, in fact, nominated, he'll have to go through a confirmation process. So it is important that you know his background and why he was selected. So TYT Investigates looked into what is his expertise, and we found out some very interesting facts about Mr. Rettig. Michael Tracy reporting here. Based in Beverly Hills, Charles Chuck Rettig has represented a bevy of rich clients in disputes with tax collectors, with a special emphasis on offshore account holders who may run afoul of U.S. law. Great. So his expertise is not in collecting taxes. It is the exact opposite. His expertise is in helping rich people evade taxes. Avoid taxes, depending on however you want to describe it. You know, he's a lawyer for the rich, and he says, oh no, moving their money offshore, that's not evasion, that's just being smart and making sure you don't get it, and that they have to increase your taxes and fees to make up for it. Yeah, very cute. Rettig has characterized tax scofflaws as well-intentioned citizens who want to hand over their fair share but simply lack the necessary knowledge. He says, quote, there are a lot of wannabe taxpayers who just don't know how to get back into the system, he said in 2004. Quote, when you provide some incentive for people to come forward, you find a tremendous number of folks to step up to the plate. He's referring to people who've moved their money offshore to hide it. They just can't figure out how to pay the taxes. Well, one way is you bring the money back into the country and you report it and you pay taxes on it. Voila! Mystery solved! No, they're keeping the taxes abroad in places like the Cayman Islands and Switzerland and Panama. Why? Because they don't want to be taxed on it. So they have been advised by people like Rettig, you move the money offshore and then you hold it hostage until you get a lower rate. And then you say, okay, now you have provided the correct incentive for me to bring my money back into the country and pay a much, much lower tax rate, as Warren Buffett points out, oftentimes way lower than their secretaries. By the way, that happens a great deal of time, as Buffett points out, when they even keep their money here in America through all the loopholes. But this is for the extra greedy who say your current loopholes are not good enough. I'm still going to move my money offshore and try to hide it from the U.S. government. In 2005, Rettig publicly defended a tax sheltering practice called the S-Corporation Charitable Contribution Strategy, in which a firm donates shares to a tax-exempt entity and then buys them back several years later in order to maximize capital gains, which are taxed at much lower rates than the shares would have been initially. So this is basically an SC2. He said, oh, no, it's just perfectly good. I mean, it seems like we're just moving money around to avoid taxes, but no. Here's what he said back then. The SC2 transaction is not the poster child for abuse of tax shelters that the government would portray. The tax result may be highly objectionable to the IRS, but as a technical matter, many knowledgeable practitioners are convinced it will be upheld in litigation. Well, guess what? It wasn't. KPMG, the accounting firm which developed SC2, was later subject to a wide-ranging tax fraud indictment for its tax sheltering practices. 3 people were ultimately convicted, while charges against 13 were dismissed. The SC2 strategy was banned by the IRS in April of 2004. But Fox, meet Henhouse. Now, the guy who wanted to do a tax shelter that was so fraudulent that it was banned, is going to be the head of the IRS if nominated and confirmed. As always with Trump, if there are global financial elites to be protected, banks to be protected, billionaires to be protected, the corrupt who have given money to politicians to be protected, Trump is going to protect them at all costs. And he's going to send someone to the IRS whose job is to destroy the IRS. Now, you think that they won't collect taxes from you guys? No. They got to make up the difference. If they let the rich get away with all their loopholes and all their offshore accounts and all their fraudulent schemes, the money's got to come from somewhere. Payroll tax, fees, fines, extra taxes on the middle class. They're going to get it out of your hide, and Reddick's going to make sure that's going to happen. Now, here's the concluding paragraph, Michael Tracy, and I want to focus on this for a reason. He says, the IRS must balance, this is according to Reddick, must balance service to the taxpayer community with an appropriate degree of enforcement of our nation's tax laws. Reddick wrote that back in 2013 Forbes.com column. In 2006, Reddick delivered a lecture entitled, Minimizing Exposure to Scrutiny in Your Client's Wealth Transfer Strategies. Isn't that a nice way of putting it? Views from the tax court and the IRS. Given how he has frequently taken legal positions at odds with IRS policy, it remains to be seen which interests he intends on, quote, servicing as IRS commissioner. He's already told you he thinks the IRS should service those high-end taxpayers. He calls them the taxpayer community. And that they should be allowed to do their wealth transfers to hide their money. Now, if he's the head of the IRS, it's going to be open season. Look, a lot of people voted for Donald Trump because they were tired of the establishment. They couldn't stand the status quo. And they wanted to drain the swamp. That part of it was an excellent electoral strategy because the American people hate corruption. But it was a joke. It was a joke meant to be played on you. As soon as he got into office, he filled his cabinet with Goldman Sachs employees, including the president of Goldman Sachs, who's his top economic advisor. He did everything he could to deregulate the banks and to lower taxes on the banks, the financial elites, millionaires, billionaires, you name it. By 2027, the 83% of the tax cuts they just passed are going to go to the just top 1%. And then he takes a guy like Chuck Redding and says, oh, you're the expert on avoiding taxes for the rich? Great. I got the perfect position for you. The head of the IRS. Who is the corruption? Open your eyes. Okay, now, let's go to the effect of that and what it does to the American people. Okay. I'm told by a lot of folks in Washington, New York, and LA and San Francisco, that the economy's doing great. And now, if you notice, cable news is beginning to shift a little bit on Donald Trump. Now that the rich have gotten all their tax cuts, sure, there's still criticism from time to time, though. Oh, no, economy's booming, economy's doing great. Based on what? Based on the stock market. Now, the stock market is not the equivalent of the economy. It is at best one indicator, and a very poor indicator, especially when they're doing stock buybacks, which artificially inflates the price of their stocks and hence the stock market. So the stock market is doing well. Here, let's show you a chart. That's the Dow Jones, and you can see it going up in the last year. And of course, if you're on television and you're a millionaire, you look at your own stock account and you go, "Hey, economy's booming! I'm an even bigger millionaire now." But for the rest of us, it's not necessarily the case at all. In fact, that leads us to a new report, and HuffPost here covering the report, saying most Americans can't afford even a minor emergency, according to a recent report from Bankrate, a website that provides financial advice. Of those surveyed, just 39% of respondents said they'd be able to cover an unexpected $1,000 bill with funds from their savings. Most of the other respondents said they would have no choice but to accrue debt by paying with a credit card, borrowing from family and friends, or getting a loan. You understand that this is first brought to my attention, and I should have known about it earlier, but by Joe Sandberg, who is the founder of Aspiration.com. That is a more progressive financial institution. They happen to be our sponsor. Take it for what it's worth. If you want, check out Aspiration.com. But he was on the show because of that, and he was talking about how a small financial emergency, or what some people on the coast might consider small, would knock out most American families and send them reeling. And now there are reports after reports confirming what he was saying. And in fact, I'll get back to Joe in a second because he has a bold new proposal about it that's also in the papers today. So in this case, though, think about it. 61% of Americans cannot financially survive a $1,000 emergency. They're financially knocked out. They got no money left. They got to do a loan, sell a car, etc. Amazing. Now, here's another stat with a lower number. According to a Federal Reserve report released last year, 44% of adults wouldn't be able to afford an unexpected $400 emergency expense. They'd either borrow the money or sell something to cover the bill. That figure is on the decline, though, and they explained that it used to be up to 50% back in 2013. So, $1,000 knocks out 61% of Americans. A $400 emergency knocks out 44% of Americans. They have no money left. They're wiped out. Now, for a lot of you out there, you might think, yeah, no duh. We already know that. We live that. I'm telling you right now, for the people in power, whether they're politicians, they're on television, etc., the so-called influencers, they have no idea. They would be shocked by those numbers. Why? They live in their own bubble. And in their bubble, everybody's doing great. Their money's in the stock market. The stock market is booming, right or wrong, bubble or not. Who cares? Money for every $1,000. That's what I made in the last 15 minutes in the market. I do declare. But then you wonder why everybody didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders did so well. Because those were the two candidates on the two different sides who said the status quo was miserable. And we are rooting for change. Now, they had different ideas of change. But guess what happened? Donald Trump defeated 16 other Republicans to win the nomination. It was not a coincidence. It was largely because he was saying that he was for that change. Now, I think in his case, he was lying. Bernie Sanders closed a 60-point lead. And people on TV keep saying that they can't figure out why. This is why. You might be doing great, but the rest of America is not. The majority of America is not. Now, one particular aspect of it that's important is medical bills. So HuffPost explains that as well. Medical bills are particularly foreboding. In 2016, medical expenses were the largest contributor to increasing the number of individuals living in poverty, according to a Census Bureau report. That year, 10.5 million people fell below the poverty line due to medical bills. What a brutal system we have. In the rest of the developed world, they all have universal health care coverage. Everyone is covered. They don't have to worry every single day. Is this the day I get wiped out? Is this the day I get sick and I can't afford it? Whereas for us, 10.5 million people brutalized below the poverty line on medical bills alone. And let alone the ones that are going to bankruptcy. And last thing here, HuffPost actually followed the story of one particular individual to just give you an illustration of how this works sometimes. It's James DeVolet. He's 54 years old, and he had two jobs in Arkansas. One was at Tyson Foods, and the other one was at Walmart. The janitor at Walmart, and he worked in Tyson Food Distribution Center, and his job required cleaning freezers. Well, he wound up getting nerve damage, so he couldn't do the job that required him to be in the freezers. So now he was knocked down to just one job. So he went from a whopping salary of $40,000, working two jobs, and he only made $40,000. Down to one job, he's now down to $20,000 a year. Again, I know for the people in power, this seems unimaginable. $20,000 is a good day in the market for them. This guy had to work himself to the bone to get there. And you know what happened? He had a good insurance with Tyson, but as he was switching to Walmart, he didn't have the insurance yet. He was going to get it from Walmart. Boom, he had a heart attack. Wiped out. So an $8,000 loan here, another giant loan there, and they were absolutely wiped out, going begging and pleading, and understandably so, asking for humanity and decency from their friends and anyone else that would listen. And near the end of the article, HuffPost explains here, they've been scraping together, and it's written by Eleanor Goldberg, they've been scraping together funds to cover the bills. A friend loaned them $100. The family sold one of their vehicles, and they're talking about selling their second car. But that would create problems for Susan, his wife, who drives an hour each way to Little Rock for work every day. Her primary goal right now is to stay on top of their monthly mortgage payments so they don't lose their home. This is the reality for a lot of Americans. Americans you never see on television. And this is why they're angry, because they're right. They're right to be angry. Here's a quote from Susan DeVolet. She said, "There's no light at the end of this. It's discouraging. You're working so hard, and then you get hit with something. We have nothing now." So that brings us back to Joe Sandberg. And he wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle today that even California has poverty rates that are far, far too high. And he suggested something, I had not seen before. $25 minimum wage. Now, I know what the people on TV are going to say, outrageous. And look, you've got to do some math on it. You got to see if it makes sense. You got to think of all the different angles here. I'm not saying I'm 100% in favor of it right out of the gate, but I want to give you context. Okay, the current federal minimum wage is $7.25. You know what that is if you work a full-time job, 40 hours a week? Just $15,080. And I'm sorry, $15,080. That's the federal minimum wage. That's what people are getting for full-time work, $15,000. $15 an hour, which most progressives argue for, only gets you to $31,200. It's not like you're living in the lap of luxury. $25 an hour gets you to $52,000, which Joe and now apparently some progressives are arguing is at least the beginning of a living wage. So I don't know if that's the right answer. I do know that we need to cover everybody in America with decent health care. I think Medicare for all is the right way to do that. But one thing I know most of all is the people in power have no idea how the average American is getting crushed on a daily basis. This is not a way to live. We need real change, fundamental change, so you could have decent wages and not be shell-shocked by any emergency that comes along. I think America deserves that, and we deserve a leader who's actually going to fight for that. All right, we'll be right back. on Young Turks, Anthony Martino writes in using hashtag TYT Live on Twitter. You can't clean coal, but you can clean out Congress. Here's how. Primaries. Agreed. I did a video on Rebel Headquarters last week that we put up on the main channel because I want everybody to see it. It gives you a link on how to register. Go register, vote in primaries. Vote, vote, vote. Don't wait for the general election. Primaries are where progressives need to act. A lot of the establishment will be asleep. If you awaken, you can make a gigantic difference for progressives, uncorrupted progressives throughout the country. So go to youtube.com/TYT to find that video. Unregistered Chicano says, come to San Antonio, Jenk. Well, I would love to. We'll see how the rallies go. The one we're doing in LA, you can get tickets at tytnetwork.com/party. Zoran Kukovic, which is an awesome name, says, a TYT rally in Kentucky would be so frickin' amazing. Well, I would love it too, or maybe West Virginia, maybe both one day. Yazin Yusuf writes in on YouTube Super Chat, what does the coal extracted during Trump's presidency say? I'm like clean coal. All right, fun for everybody. I also have breaking news, which is also fun, kind of, / not at all. The House Republicans have voted to release the so-called secret memo. I'll read you a quick first paragraph of the New York Times here. Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, apparently disregarding Justice Department warnings that their actions would be, quote, extraordinarily reckless, voted Monday evening to release a contentious secret memorandum said to accuse the department and the FBI of misusing their authority to obtain a secret surveillance order on a former Trump campaign associate. So, okay, they're going to release the memo. Let's see what it says. Based on every piece of reporting we have, it is going to say that the Republicans think it's wrong to investigate Donald Trump, to which I say, whoop-de-frickin-do. Okay, let's go over here. Now, when Donald Trump got elected, I was skeptical about his views of the TPP. During the campaign, he said over and over again that he was against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was a global trade deal. So, in fact, you're going to watch a video here the day after the election, when Donald Trump has won. And here was a prediction that I made. Now, Trump folks, really? You think he's going to be against TPP? No, here's what he's going to do. He's going to do the same exact thing Hillary Clinton would have done. Oh, no, I'm against it. We're going to negotiate a better deal. Okay, guys, hey, it was all worked out. The corporations have decided to give me money for my next run. Okay, the deal's much better. Oh, see, I negotiated a better deal. Let's sign it right away. Right away. Give away American sovereignty? Who cares? My sucker voters aren't going to pay attention anyway. I hope I'm wrong about it, but I doubt it. He will never deliver on that deal. He's more likely to deliver on the wall than he is to withdraw from TPP. No. He'll claim he made it better and then immediately sign it. Okay. Let's break down the different ways that was right. Democrats right now are considering helping Donald Trump fund his wall, which is somewhat likely, unfortunately, right now. On the other hand, with TPP, you could argue, well, Cenk, he did get out of TPP. Until the Republican donors were very happy with the tax bill. They're giving money to Donald Trump at a record rate. Steve Wynn, now the disgraced Steve Wynn, held a fundraiser for Donald Trump in the middle of the budget showdown. You had to pay $100,000 to get a seat at that table. So those are the donors going, great job on the trillions of tax cuts that you gave to the very, very rich. So, lo and behold, Donald Trump goes to Davos to meet the global financial elite, which he claimed he was against. And then we have a report out of the Hill. President Trump said Thursday he would consider re-entering the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade agreement if the terms were more favorable to the U.S. And then, as if he were channeling my prediction, adding, I would do TPP if we were able to make a substantially better deal. Almost exactly as predicted. Oh, TPP, it's fine now. I made it a better deal. Yeah, that's why I'm re-entering. Make checks payable to Donald Trump's next presidential run into the Republican Party now that he's part of the global financial elite. By the way, they had disdain for him because he'd gone bankrupt 6 times. He's a natural-born loser. Never could run a business. He got money from certain places. Well, we know both Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. have said that the Russians gave them a ton of money, but he was still an outcast. But now that he gets to attend Davos, and have people like Steve Wynn throw fundraisers for him, he's ecstatic. Yeah, of course. TPP for everyone. My voters, they're a bunch of idiots that I scammed like the guys I scammed at Trump University. Send the money. Send the money. So the Hill says it's a surprising stance for Trump, who won the 2016 election on a promise to take a more protectionist stance on trade. Well, not surprising to some. Finally, again, the Hill reports Trump railed against the TPP as a candidate, announced the U.S. would pull out of the agreement one of his first acts as president. At the time, Trump said leaving the TPP is, quote, a great thing for the American worker. But now that he's got all the corporate cash in his coffers, all of a sudden Donald Trump thinks, no, re-entering TPP would now be a great thing for the American worker. It almost seems like he changes his opinion depending on who's paying him. I think I get to say, told you. Okay. Now, speaking of that, let's go to next story. I am told over and over by the Republicans, including this guy we're going to tell you about, Steve Curtis, that the Democrats do voter fraud. Oh, voter fraud running rampant. When you ask them for evidence of voter fraud, they can hardly point to any cases at all. Even people in deeply red states, when asked to show voter fraud, simply couldn't do it. So, turns out, though, to be fair to them, there are some cases of voter fraud, which brings us to Mr. Curtis. The former chairman of the Colorado GOP, according to Law and Crime, was sentenced Friday for falsifying his ex-wife's absentee ballot. Steve Curtis, 57, must serve 4 years of probation and perform 300 hours of community service for voter fraud and forgery, according to a statement from the Weld County District Attorney. We found voter fraud. It turns out it's the chairman of the Colorado GOP who was doing it. Now get a load of his background. Curtis served as chairman of the Colorado GOP from 97 to 99. He went on to become a radio show host with KLZ 560 AM, conservative talk radio. And on that show, he said, quote, virtually every case of voter fraud I can remember in my lifetime was committed by Democrats. Am I onto something here, or do I just not have the facts? I'm pretty sure you do have the facts. You know that you committed voter fraud, but you said things like that anyway. And what do I tell you about Republicans? It's always projection. Whatever they think they want to do, they project on the liberals. Oh, they all get funded by rich liberal donors. Some might, most do not. They get funded by rich conservative donors like Rush Limbaugh, being funded by the Koch brothers, Heritage Foundation, etc., posing as ads. The liberals are snowflakes who get triggered by benign things. Oh my God, there's a war on Christmas because somebody said Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. Snowflakes. I can go on and on. And in this case, look at the Democrats doing voter fraud, when in fact that guy himself is doing voter fraud. What was his excuse for doing obvious, blatant voter fraud? Get a load of this. Steve Curtis claimed he had a diabetic blackout the night it happened and couldn't remember doing it. Yeah, I think that's how diabetic blackouts work. Hey, I'm going to fill out intricate forms on voter registration for my wife in the middle of a blackout. Probably. It turns out, no, convicted and sentenced. Here's what the prosecutor said. Bottom line, he has absolutely no respect for the law. Which, by the way, could also describe Republicans. We're for the rule of law! Unless it's Donald Trump, in which case we're going to fire every prosecutor investigating him. They never meant any of it. See, for progressives, rule of law means fairness, justice. Can we get the victims justice, but can we also be fair to the defendants? It makes sense. It's the Department of Justice. It's justice that we seek. We seek to bring people to justice, right? For conservatives, rule of law just means instituting our power over others. It doesn't actually mean justice. It means we're in charge, so we get to set the rules. So, over and over again, whether it's Donald Trump or a guy like Steve Curtis, when they don't like the law, they just ignore it. Well, it turns out if you're not the president and you don't have all the Republican representatives defending you and all the Republican donors defending you, you're a guy like Steve Curtis, and you break the law, there are consequences, and he has met them. And we have found voter fraud. We have met voter fraud, and it is a former Republican chair. All right, I got to take a break. When we come back, Anna's coming, and speaking of Steve Wynn, I thought the Republicans said that the Democrats should return Harvey Weinstein money because he's a sexual harasser. I wonder what their position on Steve Wynn's going to be. Let's find out. Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We got a lot of news to get to, so let's do it.
All
Anna,
right.
what's up?
Let's get to it. Let me just fix my hair because it's a mess. All right.
All right, Mankiewicz.
Steve Wynn has resigned from the RNC, and it follows a report by the Wall Street Journal indicating that dozens of former employees at his casinos had experienced sexual misconduct by him and his behavior. So let me give you the details on what he allegedly did based on these reports. And by the way, the Wall Street Journal did speak to dozens of individuals who corroborated these allegations and why it led to his resignation. So according to the Wall Street Journal, dozens of people interviewed had worked with him at his casinos, and they told of his behavior that cumulatively would amount to a decades-long pattern of sexual misconduct by Mr. Wynn. There was a story profiled of a manicurist who worked at one of his casinos, and apparently he went in looking for a manicure, but pressured her to do sexual favors for him. After she gave Mr. Wynn a manicure, she said he pressured her to take her clothes off and told her to lie on the massage table as he kept in his office suite. And she didn't want to have sex and that she was married, but he persisted in his demands that she do so, and she ultimately did. So after this manicurist had sex with him, she immediately went and told her superiors about it. She told the Human Resources Department about it, and absolutely nothing happened. Okay? So that was a reoccurring theme in this report. People would try to speak up about what was going on, and no one would help these individuals. After being told of the allegations, the woman's supervisor said she filed a detailed report to the casino's Human Resources Department. Again, nothing happened after that. Now, after all these reports came out over the weekend, Wynn decided to step down from the RNC. So, interestingly enough, the RNC and GOP didn't really release any statements for the first 24 hours, and then finally they did release a statement. Let me go ahead and read that to you, graphic 73. Ronna McDaniel said the following: "Today I accepted Steve Wynn's resignation as RNC finance chair."
That's it.
That's it. That's all they wrote.
So let's begin to break this down. First of all, you should know that according to the reports, Steve Wynn paid that manicurist $7.5 million in a settlement. Mm-hmm. Just FYI. So he says, no, these are all allegations, and they're coming forward because of my nasty divorce with my ex-wife. I can understand that. I've told you guys this on the show a lot. I've never gone through a divorce, but I have known plenty of people who have, and people who work in the field, and divorces can be brutal. And she's trying to do something with the stock that she has at Wynn, and so nonetheless, there is not, and he says it's just allegations, and that doesn't make it fact, and that's a fair point. But there are dozens of people who are alleging these things, and there is settlements of not a small nature to make a problem go away, but $7.5 million.
$7.5 million, and that was for a settlement involving the manicurist and the manicurist alone. There are dozens of allegations. Let me give you another one. Let's go to graphic 70. One former massage therapist at the Wynn Las Vegas spa said he would continually adjust a towel to expose himself. Then, at one session, she said, he threw it off and said, "Just get this thing off of me." He wouldn't let her use a towel to cover his genitals after that. So he later pressured her to masturbate him. And then, after that happened, he started pressuring her toward oral sex, and she refused those advances. But again, same situation. She claims that she went, complained about it, but no one did anything about it whatsoever.
Right. And remember, these would be outrageous under any circumstance, but he's also their boss.
Right.
Okay, so now, if there's one thing I know about Republicans, if there's dirty money, like from Harvey Weinstein, they think that it should be returned. So, Anna, it's weird to me that statement didn't say anything about returning the money. It just said that they resigned.
So it's no surprise that Wynn is a huge supporter and backer of the GOP, and especially of Donald Trump. He has given a considerable amount of money to Republicans and Trump's campaign, and as you know, he was the finance chair for the RNC. Now, when the Harvey Weinstein story came out, Republicans, conservatives, they were outraged by it. They were angered by it. They claimed that they wanted to protect the women and that the DNC and every Democratic candidate needed to return the money to Harvey Weinstein. It's interesting because you don't see the same behavior or the same rhetoric directed toward Republicans and Donald Trump himself, who also accepted money from Stephen Wynn. You don't get any of that commentary. And I mean, look, it's no surprise that they're hypocrites, but that statement that came out from the RNC was ridiculous. One sentence: today I accepted Wynn's resignation as Republican National Committee's chair, finance chair. Okay, what about all the women that you guys pretended to care about when, you know, these scandals broke on the left?
Yeah. Now, I want to get to the comments of the head of the RNC at this point, Ronna McDaniel. And first, let me show you the Weinstein ones. We're going to go to graphic 75 here. She said, during the 3 decades worth of sexual harassment allegations, Harvey Weinstein lined the pockets of Democrats to the tune of $750,000. If Democrats and the DNC truly stand up for women like they say they do, then returning this dirty money should be a no-brainer. Well, to be fair to the Republicans, $750,000 is a lot of money. I mean, did Steve Wynn give that much to the Republicans? Of course, you know it's more. In fact, here's the numbers. Since 2012, Wynn has given $2.5 million to the Republican Governors Association alone, $411,000 to the National Republican Senate Committee, $248,000 to the Republican National Committee, and $100,000 to the National Republican Campaign Committee. And not being satisfied with that, he also donated $729,217 to Trump's inauguration. And by the way, this is only the money that is reported. There's also dark money. There's the money that he has given to other groups that are not reported back to him. So we know that he has given far more than $750,000 that Weinstein gave to the Democrats. Now, look, if you say Democrats should return Weinstein's money, I totally understand that. That's a very fair point. But this money is also from decades of sexual harassment allegations, almost at least a very similar fact pattern. And that is what the Republicans earlier called dirty money.
Right.
And so far, not a word about returning it.
It's just pathetic. Like, the double standard is pathetic. And look, they successfully frame things to their advantage. And you hear some liberals in the media criticizing Republicans for, you know, the double standard here. But overall, I mean, they get away with this hypocrisy time and time again. It's totally okay for them to go after people, do so aggressively, but whenever the same behavior is happening on their side, they just gloss over it. Not a big deal.
So, I mean, again, uneven playing field. And so sometimes progressives rightfully call out their own. And I don't think Harvey Weinstein is representative of anybody. But should he be disavowed? Absolutely, right? And there are cases of it. Sometimes, based on flimsy allegations from just conservatives, progressives will do a circular firing squad so quick you won't know what hit you. Republicans, on the other hand, don't care. Even though we just said the opposite just a little while ago, I'm not going to return the money. I don't care. I'm going to circle the wagons. Trump is accused by 19 women of sexual harassment. I said all those things about, Al Franken, John Conyers, you name it, right? Don't care. Not going to do anything about Trump. And the list goes on and on. Now Steve Wynn, he gave millions and millions of dollars to the Republicans. We were lying when we said it was dirty money or that we cared about sexual harassment. We don't care. We're just going to keep it. What are you going to do about it? And so when you have one side that always circles the wagon and the other side that always surrenders, it's not a good combination.
We got to take a break. Let's do that. And when we come back, a neo-Nazi group is linked to murders in the U.S., and the media is asleep at the wheel in reporting this, so we will give you the details of that story and more when we return.
power panel. What's like this panel? We're talking about power.
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. So the best writers in the country are right here on this panel, with the obvious exception of John Irola.
Let's not so quickly discount Harry Potter fanfiction.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
What ran me away from Christianity was judgment and condemnation. Assaulting peaceful protesters in North Dakota, crazier than bombing Yemen, crazier than bombing Syria so much they ran out of bombs.
Reductive interpretation of what their motives are, what Putin's are, by these
we have a
amateur
constitution,
experts.
they don't. We don't kill our journalists, and they do.
As you call me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
You said I had small hands. They're not small, I never heard that one before.
And that's some easy listening right there. Okay, Okay, members of the day, Young Turks, Jank and Anna with you. Members of the day are Sean Welling and Deb Bauman. Members make this show possible. TYTnetwork.com/join. You get all the shows, by the way, including this one. That's 2 hours. Dan Rathers, which is a weekly show, old school, aggressive progressives, all without commercials. TYTnetwork.com/join, including the post game today, where I will talk about how I almost got into a fight with a Trump supporter over the weekend. Jeez. Disastrous. Okay, I am Sockright said on Twitter, they finally did it. They got tired of winning. Yes, I am Sock. That's the kind of pun I'm talking about. Okay, I almost went with the graphic not winning, but they talked me out of it. Anyway, you know what I am Sock? For a pun after my own heart, t-shirt. Pick any t-shirt from shoptyt.com, and we'll get that to you guys, or to you. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. There's been a number of murders over the last year that have raised concerns about an organization, a neo-Nazi group that is growing in the United States. Now, currently, what we know about this group is that it's small. There are dozens of individuals who have joined in, and they are not only neo-Nazis, but also very much anti-government, and they plan on overthrowing the government and doing so in a violent way. Now, we know this because it's in their manifesto. It's online. It's something that they openly preach about time and time again, and it seems as though no one's really onto them or doing anything about it. Now, the recent story that drew attention to this neo-Nazi group involved a 19-year-old student in Orange County, California, that was found stabbed to death. And his name was Blaze Bernstein, and the suspect who's been arrested in connection to his murder is a man by the name of Sam Woodward. Now, Sam Woodward, who you can see there, is a member of this neo-Nazi group, and I'm going to tell you a little more about them right now. The name is Atomwaffen Division, a relatively new Charles Manson-obsessed neo-Nazi outfit that defines itself as a revolutionary national socialist organization centered around political activism and the practice of an autonomous fascist lifestyle. Now, what you saw there was in quotes because that is what they state themselves about their own group. They have the ultimate aim of overthrowing the U.S. government through the use of terrorism and guerrilla warfare. Now, Woodward, the man who has been arrested in connection to the murder of Blaze Bernstein, joined the hate group back in 2016, and attended a 3-day training camp with other members in Texas. During
2016, I wonder why. Can't quite tell why people were encouraged to do that at that time. All right, what else happened?
So during that training, they openly talk about the need for a violent overthrow of the government, their hatred for minority groups and anyone who isn't a white male who's very open and apparent. And they also talk about how they're against so-called keyboard warriors. They don't want people to, do activism from the comfort of their own homes behind a computer screen. They want people to take physical action. So there was the death of Blaze Bernstein, and then there's also something interesting that we talked about a couple months ago, the murder of these two parents in Virginia, Reston, Virginia. So the Atomwaffen connection has also been reported in the bizarre murder of Scott Fricker and Buckley Kuhn Fricker in their Reston, Virginia home in December. That story involved a teenage girl who was involved with a man who was also part of this group. And apparently once the parents realized that he was this neo-Nazi, they advised their daughter to stop seeing him. He retaliated by showing up to their home and literally murdering them.
So, the camp they went to, they themselves called the Doomsday Hate Camp, and they took a picture there wearing skull masks and doing Nazi salutes. The quote that Anna read you about guerrilla warfare and terrorism is their own quote.
Yes.
So they say we are terrorists, and we're looking through the American government. Now, Anna's right. It's not a huge group. that people can now, groups like the Anti-Defamation League are tracking them. They have about 80 members. Okay? But with those 80 members, they've already done significant damage. By the way, the Atomwaffen in German means atomic weapon. And so there's the Blaise Bernstein murder. And let me just pause there for a second. So they hate blacks and Latinos and Muslims. You're not surprised by that. But until you get into this extreme right-wing neo-Nazi movement, you don't realize how much they hate the Jews. And that comes up over and over again. Watch my interview with David Duke on TYT interviews. I was surprised. I thought he was going to talk about blacks and people crossing the border and all this stuff. No, obsessed with Jewish Americans. Obsessed. So, Blaise Bernstein happens to be Jewish. He's killed in a hate crime. And so it always comes back to that. So there was that. There was the Frickers who were murdered. Another guy in a small little group with us. 2 sets of murders. 3 people killed, according to investigators so far. That is what they believe happened. And then there's this interesting case in Tampa, Devin Arthurs, who killed 2 of his roommates, Jeremy Himmelman and Andrew One-Shot. And there was a 4th roommate, Brandon Russell. Turns out they were all part of Atomwaffen. And this crazy twist to the story is another story we had reported on. It turns out that Arthurs flipped on the roommates. Now look, in order to be in this group, you have to be damaged in some way. I mean, like, your life's got to feel so miserable. You got to blame it on the Jews, the Muslims, the blacks, and Latinos. And I know that a lot of things are blamed on Muslims and Latinos, particularly these days, in mass. But for those folks, a lot of things are going wrong in their life, right? That they need a scapegoat. So, but in order to be in this division where you're saying you're a terrorist neo-Nazi, there's got to be something bigger than you. So Devin Arthurs then flips and decides that he's going to go in a different direction. He's going to become an extreme Muslim. And he murders his fellow neo-Nazis, but they don't get Brandon Russell, who's the 4th roommate. And then Arthurs tells a story about how they were going to blow up a nuclear power plant. And the authorities are like, I don't know about that. And it turns out Brandon Russell had an explosive device.
That's right.
And so that was a real plot. These are hardcore terrorists. There's all these killings all across the country, in different places in the country, plus the plot to blow up a nuclear power plant. So this is incredibly interesting. Now, let us pause for a second. Imagine we knew of a group that had publicly declared that there were Muslim radicals. There were 80 of them, and they had said they were terrorists, and they were looking to overthrow the American government, and had done these murders throughout the country. Now, how do you think it would get covered in the media?
I don't know, but I mean, not only covered in the media, but talked about by our elected officials. And that's the thing that concerns me the most, because while I think that it's completely fine to track extremists of all backgrounds, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're Christian, I don't care. If you are planning any type of plot that harms people, that murders people, that hurts anyone, then the government should be tracking you, should be investigating you, should be doing anything and everything to prevent it. But in this case, it seems as though this is an organization that is openly talking about causing serious harm to people. And what's happening? I mean, why are they able to carry out these murders without people investigating them and preventing that? What is the whole point of the NSA? Why are they spying on every single American indiscriminately? Right? Why? It's because of national security. We want to keep people safe. You have this group of people openly talking about how they want to cause harm to others, how they want to violently overthrow the government. Is anyone watching them? Is anyone tracking them? Is anyone keeping an eye on what's going on? That's what I want to know. The media is corrupt. The media is doing a crappy job in covering this. Good on the Washington Post for covering the story in their paper. But overall, I'm not really seeing much attention drawn to this.
Are you kidding me? I know cable news would go apoplectic over this. Oh my God, we found a group of 80, a cell of 80 declared terrorist Muslims in the country, and they've already committed all these murders in different parts of the country. Oh my God, the terrorists are here, and they're looking to overthrow the government. Oh, and it would be over and over and over and over again. Oh, neo-Nazis, it's not a big deal. They're just murdering random Jews and their parents, etc., planning to blow things up. No big deal.
Got anything going on Monday night?
Atomwaffen.
My friend Christine's birthday. We're having a party.
And then Trump says, we got to ban Muslims until we figure out what the hell is going on. That's what he said during the campaign. Then he does a Muslim ban, finds out that's illegal, and then he goes, yeah, I meant a travel ban, right? So banning all Muslims. In this case, you don't have to ban all right-wingers. You don't have to investigate all right-wingers, and we would never agree with that, right? But here's a specific group of neo-Nazis who say we would like to do terrorism, and they have already 3 of their members, 2 members and 1, I guess, former member, right, has already killed all these people. And but there's no investigation until we figure out what the hell is going on. And I hope the FBI, which from time to time does a good job of tracking down plots. Sometimes they unfoil Muslim terrorist plots, which they stop at a greater rate, but that's good. I'm thrilled that they're stopping those plots. Right-wing plots, which they right-wing extremist plots, which they block at a lower percentage, but still, from time to time, they'll catch like the guys who were planning to blow up the apartment building where Somalis were living in, I think it was Kansas. So some good work there. But this would appear to be something that we should all be concerned about. It should be target of an actual investigation based on credible evidence, rather than, I don't like this group of people, so let's demagogue.
Detroit Metal City.
All right, moving on to some other news. Recently, CNN in Atlanta was dealing with some significant death threats that were lodged at them by a 19-year-old by the name of Brandon Griesmer. Now, he had called CNN on 22 different occasions, and during those phone calls, he made threats that included, I'm coming to gun you all down, and also, I'm smarter than you, more powerful than you, I have more guns than you, more manpower, your task is about to get gunned down in a matter of hours. Now, CNN took those threats seriously. They immediately took action to protect its employees and make sure that everyone will be okay. But Breitbart took this story and framed it in a way that I thought was fascinating. Now, what you're about to listen to is Alex Marlowe, who is the host of the radio program that Breitbart does on Patriot Radio. He's speaking to John Nolte, who's the editor-at-large at Breitbart. And here's what they had to say about the threats that CNN had to deal with. Take a listen.
You're rightly pointing out that pushing fake news lies, as CNN does, where the push that the president is a racist and should be removed from office by the 25th Amendment because he's crazy, this is going to create a tension within the country that is going to, if not lead towards violence, it is going to at least push it in that direction. And it's a very cautionary and thoughtful piece, and yet CNN was fully triggered online, exploded over it, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on it days later.
Very definition of a network that has been everyone spreading hate, lies, fake news, openly fomenting riots. For years now, it was really there was a shit fucker took over the network, and you have a 19-year-old guy in Michigan. According to authorities, he was so angry over CNN's fake news that he called them with the death threats and threatened to go to their Atlantic headquarters and kill everyone. I think one of the question with the guy is unbalanced.
Everyone that grabbed my hand.
So let me give you some more from Nolte. He continued to say CNN is a network that is in hyperdrive to legitimize political violence. CNN wants political violence. They want people hurt. They want riots. They want Antifa out there. They see political violence as a legitimate tool to further CNN's far left agenda. So that is their take on death threats aimed at CNN. That is CNN's fault that they are provoking political violence. You know, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why it was that they kept making it seem as though CNN pushes for fake news or political violence, all this BS that they keep, spewing. Why is it they keep going after CNN? CNN is the one cable news channel that goes out of its way to pretend like it doesn't have any bias, right? It doesn't have any political leanings. They're completely neutral all the time. They don't want to pick sides. I mean, yes, they have some of the hosts that do some commentary that, will call Trump out. But overall, they always make it seem as though both sides are equal. I mean, MSNBC doesn't do that. MSNBC comes at it from a very anti-Trump perspective, but they don't attack Trump. I mean, they don't attack MSNBC as much. And I realize what it is. They know that CNN is obsessed with appearing neutral. and that they won't fight back as aggressively as some other cable news channel will. But by the way, who pushes for political violence more than anyone? Wouldn't it be the president who's consistently saying, fake news, oh, they're doing all this bad stuff to the American people, they're misinforming you? Would it be that guy? Would it be the guy that tweeted this last year? Take a look at this video. No, but it's CNN. It's CNN that's provoking political violence. I'm so tired of the right wing deciding what the narrative is, successfully framing things and twisting things to their advantage, lying to people about what's really going on. The reality is, the conservatives right now, people like the talking heads at Breitbart that you just heard from, they're the ones pushing for political violence. Our president, he's pushing for political violence. They're the ones who support it, who push for it, who frame things in these ways. How are you going to blame how are you going to blame CNN for a 19-year-old directing death threats toward them? Like, how sick is that?
No, well, that's exactly the point. What they're trying to do is tell their audience, CNN has it coming.
It's disgusting.
The guy who threatened to kill everybody at CNN, well, that was CNN's fault.
No.
If CNN hadn't done the fake news, well, then they wouldn't have to get murdered. But I guess since they're doing it, they're asking for it. That is clearly what John Nolte and Alex Marlow are driving at here. I mean, look, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but to me, one of the most frustrating parts is the rest of the media taking Breitbart or any of these alt-right lunatics seriously. Oh, that's a source. Oh, that's legitimate. Oh, they reported on this. As if they have an interest in the truth. Look at these lunatics that think that CNN is fomenting violence. What? On which planet? Look, I have my issues with CNN. Ironically, it's the opposite. It's that, not that they're not promoting violence, I don't want them to do that under any circumstance, that they're the establishment. They have an establishment bias. And you know what an establishment bias is? Protect the status quo. Now, the last thing the status quo wants is any violence in the streets. They're already part of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They don't want anybody to rock the boat. It's their boat. So, and everyone on the CNN is plain Jane vanilla. And they take these guys and pretend that they're the ones pushing for riots in the streets. You have to be a lunatic to believe that. And the rest of the press takes these lunatics seriously?
Yeah, it was CNN that pushed for the protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. Right? It was CNN that persuaded someone to run over a counter-protester and essentially take her life. It was CNN that did that. Or was it Breitbart? And right-wing, non-news organizations like that essentially foster this type of disgusting environment. And by the way, look, politics aside, we're playing with people's lives right now. They're playing with people's lives, and they have absolutely no qualms about it.
And by the way, why drop Jeff Zucker's name in the middle of all that? There's no evidence that CNN changed their so-called fomenting of violence. What it is, again, I can't describe to you how insane that is. And to link that to Jeff Zucker. And then they protest like, oh, how dare they link us to the neo-Nazis? Well, we know that Milo asked neo-Nazis for their opinion on what the alt-right should be, and then you guys at Breitbart published it. We already know that. And then you drop Jeff Zucker's name in the middle of a rant about how they have it coming. Gee, I wonder where you're going with that. Okay? So that if you're not aware and you're not an alt-right freak, you're totally confused. I don't know why. Why Jeff Zucker? Jeff Zucker happens to be Jewish. It's a whistle dog to their followers. Oh, it's the elite that are doing it again. Remember when Alex Jones was ranting about Brian Stelter and how he's a spawn of Satan and how they drink the kids' blood and they run all the banks? Why does CNN run the banks? It's obvious anti-Semitism put in there to foment people, and then he says at one point, quote, obviously, John Nolte does, obviously he was provoked by CNN's fake news. In other words, if you don't like CNN's fake news, just like we've been telling you not to like it, I guess you'd be provoked too into trying to kill all of them.
And also think about how this is a form of intimidation, right? It's a form of intimidation. If you ever have the audacity to criticize Trump, well then immediately you will be labeled as fake news And we're going to go ahead and constantly perpetuate this like ridiculous narrative that you're fake news to the point where people get all up in arms and then direct death threats to you, direct violence toward you. And then if anyone carries out any type of threat or violence, it's your fault. It's your fault for having the audacity to speak out against our dear leader. That's what this is. It's creating an environment of intimidation so people don't actually speak the truth about Donald Trump, so they don't actually criticize him for his ridiculous failed policies. It's disgusting.
Look, it's one thing for right-wingers to say that CNN has a liberal bias, and that's perfectly fine. Agree, disagree. And CNN, I'm sure, wholly disagrees with my assessment that they have an establishment bias. Those are conversations to be had in the political sphere. When you start doing exactly as Anna pointed out, intimidation, winking at violence, and this is the beginning of fascist propaganda. You cannot legitimize it. Because once you take the Breitbarts of the world and any of those alt-right online so-called news publications, they're not news, they're propaganda, and they're hateful and oftentimes dangerous propaganda. If you legitimize them, you have done them a great favor and a great disservice to journalism. They're not journalists, they're nowhere near it. All they want to do is stoke up their side for dangerous propaganda.
Well, CNN had an interview recently with Jay-Z, and that sparked a tiff with Donald Trump. So let's get to that story. Recently, Van Jones spoke to Jay-Z on CNN, and during their conversation, they talked about the current political climate and Donald Trump's claims in regard to increasing employment for Black Americans. Take a look.
We have a president that comes and says he is somebody who's now saying, look,
all right, let's go back and play that video again, please.
He is somebody who's now saying, look, I'm dropping Black unemployment. Black people are doing well under my administration. Does he have a point that maybe the Democrats have been giving us good lip service but no jobs? Maybe he's going to say terrible things but put money in our pocket. Does that make him a good leader?
No, because it's not about money at the end of the day. Money doesn't equate to like happiness. It doesn't. That's not missing the whole point. We treat people like human beings, and then that's the main point. You can't treat someone like it goes back to the whole thing. You're gonna treat me really bad and pay me well.
So Jay-Z also talked about the current racial tensions in the country that he feels are fostered by Donald Trump and his rhetoric toward minorities. And Donald Trump did not like that conversation. He got triggered fairly quickly and immediately took to Twitter, as he does, and said the following: "Somebody please inform Jay-Z that because of my policies, Black unemployment," I don't know why unemployment is capitalized, "has just been reported to be at the lowest rate ever recorded." He continued to say African American unemployment is the lowest ever recorded in our country. The Hispanic unemployment rate dropped a full point in the last year and is close to the lowest in recorded history. Dems did nothing for you but get your vote. Hashtag never forget. And I love that he included Fox and Friends in the tweet. Now, the reality is that unemployment for Black Americans had already been decreasing significantly, especially during the last term in Obama's administration. So let me give you the numbers on that. African American unemployment had fallen precipitously during President Barack Obama's second term from 13.7% to 7.8%, a drop that has actually continued during Trump's first year in office. So if you take a quick look at this graph, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There was a rather steep decline in the unemployment rate for Black Americans during Obama's term, and then it just continued dropping after Trump got elected.
So put that back up for a second, that graph. Let me read you the last sentence of the second tweet that Anna read for you. He said, "Dems did nothing for you but get your vote," referring to African Americans. Does that graph, go back to the graph, does that graph look like they did nothing for you as an unemployment plummeted, African American unemployment plummeted under Obama? And he said, hashtag never forget. Okay, well then look at that chart and don't forget it, because it got cut nearly in half under Obama, And obviously the trend continues now. It's not like Trump did anything different. The graph does not go in a different direction. It goes in the same direction.
Right, and I want to be clear about where the source is for those numbers. It's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that is government data that is readily available to anyone who wishes to take a look at it.
And he said to Jay-Z that it's because of my policies that these have gone down. What policies? What policies in regards to African Americans? So Jay-Z, look, he's not a political expert. He should not have conceded that people are doing better at all because of Trump and say, well, you still have to be decent. No, it's not his policies at all. If anything, you can tell from the chart, it's Obama's policies. I actually think the problem there is, yes, that's unemployment, but wages are not in good shape. Mm-hmm. So I would blame Obama and Trump for that. But once again, Donald Trump triggered and attacking an African American celebrity. Eminem, also a rapper, said similar things, did not get attacked. Curious.
Yeah.
All right, Rebel Headquarters is next with opponent for Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Bye-bye. Rebel headquarters. I start half the shows by saying welcome back. It's okay. So part of what we do here is meet some progressive candidates, especially the uncorrupted that don't take corporate PAC money. I've got two of those folks for you guys today. But the other thing we're trying to do is be a place where we can get progressive messages out, and hence Rebel headquarters. So I got a message for you guys along those lines today about California. So if you're in California, there is an important message that the nurses union wants you to have. They're going to fight for single payer again in the state of California. So they explain the California's Assembly's Select Committee on Healthcare Delivery Systems and Universal Coverage has announced their fourth hearing to be held again in the state capitol in Sacramento on February 7th, and they want you guys to go. So look at that. That's clever. The main event, the people of California versus Anthony Rendon. He's the guy who voted it down last time, basically. This hearing is the first time we've been told that SB 562 will be officially discussed. The California Nurses Association, Our Revolution, Knock Every Door, and Healthy California are coordinating buses to take people to the hearing. And what they need you to do is show up. And look, I'm in favor of this, no matter which progressive group we're talking about. Show up, be heard, and going to a committee hearing at your local state government, to me, is even more important than going to rallies. Because when they see you, they know that those are people who passionately care about this issue and will hold them accountable. That's their voters. That matters even more than the rallies. So if you want to get a spot and get more information, a spot on the bus, go to tinyurl.com/SingerPayRally. We'll have the links down below as well in the description box. And tinyurl.com/SinglePayerFacebook to get on the bus and RSVP for the event on Facebook. And they're asking you to wear red if you can. So if you're in the state of California, especially if you're near Sacramento, get involved. If you want universal health care, fight for it. Okay, now let me go to one of those fighters. Now joining us at Rebel headquarters, Amy McGrath. She is running in Kentucky's 6th district. And boy, she's got an interesting resume and an interesting opponent. First of all, welcome to the program, Amy. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be here. I'm fine.
All right.
Here, Jake.
Now, Amy, it says here that you're a retired lieutenant colonel of the U.S. Marine Corps, an FA-18 fighter pilot. But my beef here is I'm not sure you won enough medals. You've got only 2 meritorious service medals, 8 strike flight air medals, a Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal, a Navy Achievement Medal, a Presidential Unit Citation, and 2 Afghan and 1 Iraq campaign medals. Well, did you do anything in the Marine Corps?
Well, I just worked hard, and I loved serving my country.
All right. Now, putting kidding aside, so you've obviously got this accomplished career in the military. Why run for office?
Well, because we need better leaders. And I've served my country, and I feel like we need public servants again, not people who want to get into office just for their own benefit or to further an agenda of a political party necessarily, but to serve the people again. And so I felt like, hey, this is what I've done in my life. I've been a public servant. As a military officer, that's what I did. And so this is, to me, this is an extension of public service.
So you got on your, I'm going to get to your Republican opponent and your Democratic opponents in a second. They're an interesting lot. But in your list of priorities, you have universal health care and money in politics, etc. But I want to focus on 2 things because I'm curious what your position is. One is foreign policy. So what's your take on the wars that we've got now, including Afghanistan, and your overall vision for foreign policy?
Well, my overall vision is that we ought to always have our foreign policy based on our American values in general. But in terms of the wars that we've been in, my big thing is Congress hasn't done their job. You know, in Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that Congress is the one that declares wars. That means Congress is the one that has the power for authorizations to use military force, and we haven't had one in 16 years. You know, in 2016, we bombed in 7 different countries. We haven't had an authorization by Congress to do any of those things. And the problem that I have is not necessarily that we're doing them, it's that we don't have a debate in this country. We don't, because Americans don't know about it, because Congress hasn't taken that up, and that is their responsibility. So I think, look, here's the bottom line. If Congress can't debate whether we should be in any of these places, then we shouldn't be sending troops there.
So, in all your service in all those different theaters of war, I'm curious, did you learn something from that as to how to, not necessarily how to conduct these wars, but what our policies there should be? And I don't know, because you might have just done your service and not necessarily learn any political lessons. That's why I ask.
Well, I learned a great deal, and that's one of the reasons I'm running for office. A lot of people think that the way to win these wars is just by hard power alone. I'm somebody that was the executor of hard power. I mean, I dropped bombs. I was a fighter pilot. But what I learned overseas is that we're not going to win these wars by just dropping more bombs. We're not going to win by the president saying, hey, our new strategy in Afghanistan is to kill terrorists. It's not going to happen. We can play whack-a-mole for 100 years, but at the end of the day, we have to have good strategic communications. We have to fund agencies like the State Department. They are so vital to our national security. Agencies like U.S. Agency for International Development. It's about the failure of the human condition in many parts of the world, which moved people to radical jihadism. We have to combat those things. You have to get to the root of the problem, not just the end state of, hey, we're just going to drop bombs on people. That's what I learned.
Right. Now, you're progressive running in Kentucky, so obviously you'll be met with some skepticism. Can progressives win in Kentucky? I happen to think there's definitive answer is yes to that. But you also have guns as one of your priorities, so that raises an even bigger question in a state like Kentucky. So what is your stance on guns?
Well, I make no apologies for being someone who is a proponent of the Second Amendment. I am a gun owner. I was a Marine Corps officer. I've shot just about everything you can possibly imagine. And I was an expert in many of these weapons. But I'm also a mom. I'm a mom of 3 small kids, and I believe that gun violence in America is a problem. It's a health concern. And we ought to look at it that way. There are things that the majority of gun owners in this country and the majority of Americans agree on. Bump stocks. I mean, the majority of gun owners think that we shouldn't have bump stocks to make a semi-automatic weapon an automatic weapon. The majority of gun owners think that if you're on a terrorist no-fly watch list, that maybe you shouldn't be able to go into a gun store and buy a weapon. So I think these are the things that we ought to tackle first, the things that gun owners and the majority of Americans, the majority of gun owners, already agree to. Now, the problem is the special interest groups. And as you mentioned earlier, the money in politics. We've got to get that out, or the debate is going to be centered on the fringes of this issue. And we've got to get back to practical things we can do to start tackling this issue.
So speaking of money in politics, what percentage of your money comes from small donors versus corporate donors, and what percentage of the incumbent's money, that's Andy Barr, who's a Republican, comes from large donors and small donors?
Yeah, so that's the incumbent Andy Barr gets 97% of his money from the wealthiest 1% and special interest in corporate donors and the big banks. For me, almost all of my money is small donations. I think probably 60 to 70% are donations that are, $50 or less. I have 16,000, just right around 16,000 donors right now. And that's how you tackle this money in politics issue, because the people who benefit from that, the folks like Andy Barr, who's the incumbent here, he's never going to tackle money in politics. He's never going to do it. Folks who can self-fund, they're not likely to really tackle money in politics. It's going to have to be people-centered campaigns, people who are elected on people-centered campaigns and small dollar donors.
So I see here that Andy Barr, his top 3 donors are the financial industry, insurance, and real estate. Only, as you mentioned, 97% coming from big donors. Only 3% of his donors have given less than $200. Gee, I wonder who he works for. And it certainly ain't the people of Kentucky. So, to me, a progressive who's uncorrupted has a way better chance of beating a clearly corrupted person who's serving special interests in a district like that. But I know that oftentimes the Democratic establishment does not agree. So let me ask you about that. Who are your primary opponents, and what is their status?
Well, my main primary opponent is the mayor of Lexington, a man by the name of Jim Gray, and he is a very established politician in this area. And the Democratic National Party essentially recruited him to run in this race, even after I had raised over $1 million in mostly small dollar donations. So a little bit frustrating for me, simply because the National Democratic Party had said, hey, we want new candidates, we want women, we'd love veterans, and so, but you know what, I'm not worried about it. I think the message is clear, and I want to run on a positive campaign, but it's about new leaders. It's about having a new face, new voices, and frankly, I think we need a new generation of leaders in the Democratic Party.
So, if you want to be one of those small donors or want to help in Kentucky's 6th District, let me show you the links here for Amy McGrath. That's her website, her donation link, and her volunteer link. The volunteer armies win these elections by doing door knocking, etc. So if you're Kentucky's 6th, that's the most important thing. If you're anywhere else in the country, obviously, if you don't want big money ruling politics, the small donations make a giant difference. We'll have the links down below on YouTube's description box or on Facebook's comment section. Lieutenant Colonel McGrath, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen. It was great to be here.
Thank you. All right, when we come back, Sheriff Joe Arpaio is running for Senate in Arizona. We've got his progressive opponent on Rebel Headquarters. Look, I got some tweets from did I say Young Turks Rebel headquarters? Anyway, it's part of the Young Turks Network. Speaking of which, I got some tweets from the Young Turks show that I want to read you guys because they're really, really good. Evan Richter says, how are Republicans getting away with obsessing with hashtag release the memo nonsense when Trump still hasn't released his tax returns? Hashtag release the returns. Ishka Bibble with my favorite tweet, which is, oh, I see. CNN shouldn't have worn that dress. I think that's a great one. And Old Turk, Anna's got it. She's on fire. Okay, agreed. So, Edwin is telling me to take this off. Okay, all right. Did I do it? Yes, there we go. All right, let's go to our next guest. Really, really interesting. Deidre Abu joins us at Rebel headquarters. She's running for a Senate seat in Arizona. Deidre, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Deidre, boy, you've got some clowns to the left of you and some jokers to the right of you. Apparently, we're stuck in the middle with you, which is a good place to be stuck. Before we get to the left, let's talk about the right. This is the Senate seat that Jeff Flake is leaving. Sheriff Joe Arpaio is in this race. Chemtrail Kelly Ward is in this race. I mean, you've got a real murderer's row of lunatics on the right-wing side. Of those people, who do you think is the biggest threat that you'd like to stop with your candidacy?
I don't think that Arpaio or Kelly Ward are the issue. I think McSally is the one to beat. She's always said that she's a moderate, and suddenly she's no longer a moderate and totally on the Trump train. And I think that she's the one that is actually most credible within the Republican Party. That's the real opponent.
Now, why do you think she's on the Trump train?
Her latest videos of releasing her campaign, she's definitely seeking the Trump endorsement, thinks that will make a difference. But, you know, she's focusing on national security and the threat of the scary people that don't look like us.
Yeah. And McSally, and this goes to a larger point, is running for the Senate because she might actually lose her House seat. And it's partly because not just shifting demographics, especially in Arizona, but because of what appears to be a tidal wave of blue coming. And so over 30 Republicans have already said they're not going to run anymore, including 8 or 9 committee chairs, which is stunning. And so McSally's running from the House as much as she's running towards the Senate. And so that's a really interesting dynamic for you, because now there's a toss-up state. And it could go for someone like her, who I think is extreme with the ties to Trump, or someone as extreme as Arpaio, or it could go to a Muslim American such as yourself. Boy, that's a big swing.
It's a very interesting district that she's leading. They're actually progressive, and she was definitely in jeopardy. There was a huge movement against her positions and her voting record, and those people are going to follow her into the Senate campaign, demonstrating that she does not represent that area. But in general, in Arizona, people really want to believe their representatives and believe that they want what is best for our state. They want our representatives to stop bickering. Yes, that's true, but they also want them to stand up and fight for Arizona. I mean, such as health care for all and net neutrality, and they want we're all fine with religion. A lot of us are religious, so we want our government to get out of the business of God and let us have our own relationships with God without laws. So there's a lot going on, and then education, of course, is a big deal in Arizona.
Yeah, and so I read that you were originally a Southern Baptist. Just curious, why did you decide to convert to Islam?
I think like a lot of people, you know, religion speaks to you when you study it, and when I originally studied it, it was actually to convert Muslims to Christianity, and the more I studied in order to be better at converting them, the more I liked what I read, and it spoke to me, and I really liked the very clear ideas of what women's rights were, contrary to what most people think, and I embraced that, and I also understood, being in the South and also being a Christian, that there's a definite difference between what the doctrine says and what some people practice.
Yeah, but look, I went in a different direction, or the opposite direction. I was born Muslim, but became atheist, agnostic. But we agree on policy.
Well, I think that you will agree that no one has religious liberty unless everyone has religious liberty, including people who don't want religion at all.
That's exactly right. So let's talk about net neutrality, because, I see a lot of the priority lists for the candidates, and there's lots of good things on there. Medicare for all, and you have that as well. Money out of politics. You're a Just Democrat, so you don't take any corporate PAC money. So that's all wonderful. But not a lot of folks have net neutrality on their list of priorities. Why do you have that one?
I chose that one in April, May of last year, and I chose that because I saw that is a very clear foundational freedom issue. If we allow corporations, relationships with corporations to decide what information we get, fake news is the least of our worries. And I saw that the lack of regulation, and it really has to be some regulation. You can't just let corporations willy-nilly decide who gets what information at what rate and not treating all data as equal, then that really feeds into us not being free and being able to be controlled by different interests. So since that's such a foundational freedom issue and so many people didn't understand that, I wanted to make that one of my top policy issues, both to educate people and to protect that freedom, even though people didn't really understand until late last year how important that freedom was.
And you've got another one on here that I found interesting. You talk about privatization of our public education system being a threat to democracy itself. That's very interesting. That's a strong statement. Why so?
We're making our children a commodity. We're deciding whether or not they can eat, whether or not they deserve it. So we're taking away the free meal programs. But more importantly, it's the voucher program, the privatization of schools. Arizona's ground zero of the voucher program, and it's a hideous program that most people were confused that they needed the vouchers to send their children to charter schools. Charter schools already get public money even though they're privately owned, and the vouchers don't benefit the charter schools. So you're giving this public money to private entities that are majority religious based. So not only are you privatizing education with no federal oversight or state oversight because they're private, but you're also using public money to establish religion or to support religion. So if I wasn't against it because of the commoditization of children, I would also be against it because it's having public money supporting religion, which shouldn't be the case.
Okay, great. And as a secular agnostic, I couldn't agree more. And so one more thing now. Let's talk about the Democrats in the primary. Krista Sinema is the one being backed by the Democratic establishment. I had a lot of great hopes for her when she first went into Congress. She seemed like a significant progressive, but now she's taking on a lot of conservative positions and greatly disappointed progressives across the country. So what's the dynamic there? Is she able to rally progressives? Have they not gotten the memo on what her actual positions is? Or is that going to be an issue for her in the race?
That is definitely an issue for her in the race. I actually have known Kirsten since '99. We were in the peace movement together, and been a supporter all of these years. I got into the race in April. She got in October, November. But definitely her votes have not been anywhere close to smelling progressive, and that's a problem. Because Arizona is not a red state, it's a purple state, and it's had so many Republican representatives, not because we have more people who are conservative leaning, but because we haven't been running anyone else. And that's not the case in 2018. But, immigration's a big issue here. She voted for Kate's Law, which is an enhancement for people who are undocumented, putting them in jail for 10 to 15 years instead of just deportation, which costs us tax money. She voted against net neutrality, regulating the internet providers, how much they could charge people for the internet. She has not mentioned anything about healthcare at all. She just wants to make ACA better, but not make sure that everybody has coverage, and that is so important. Her website is actually completely empty of any information whatsoever. Both her congressional and her Senate website do not say what she wants to do, and only her congressional website says what she's done. So a lot of times we don't know where she stands, but if you look at her voting record, it's definitely not even close to anything called progressive. And honestly, I don't think that it's moderate either, because if you're not for every American having health care, which is actually the moderate position so we don't die and catch up with the rest of the industrialized world, I'm not sure how you can even call yourself moderate at that point.
Yeah, I don't know why we would go for corporate Democrats when they're real progressives in primaries. That's the whole point of primaries. So I want to give everybody links to Deidre Aboud's website and how to donate and how to volunteer. Time is more important than money. As I tell you all the time, warriors will beat mercenaries. So if you're in Arizona, volunteer for Deidre at her website, Deidre2018.com. And then, of course, if you want small dollar donations to beat corporate donations, then that's, of course, part of what you can do to help as well. The links will be down below on YouTube's description box and the comment section on Facebook. And from my point of view, drive Donald Trump crazy and have a Muslim American with a Southern twang beat Joe Arpaio and the rest of the lunatics on the right in Arizona. And that'll be a perfect present for progressives. Thank you for being on, Deidre. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Anytime.
All right. Okay, we are way out of time. We got a post game for you guys if you guys are members. TYTnetwork.com/join and become a member. There I'll tell you about the near fisticuffs I got into over Trump over the weekend. And then later in the day, for the members, we'll also be live at 6:15 Pacific with two progressives, just TYT interview segments about public banking and divesting out of the bad banks. This is not about any of the banks, including online banks. It's a totally different concept called public banking. I want to tell you about that too. Members get to watch the interviews as they happen, and we put them up later for other folks. So TYTnetwork.com/join. We'll be right back for the post game.
Classes because you are spending your time watching what you should not be doing instead of studying. Don't blame it on me and they say it's your fault. You need to learn how to be up during the day and studying, not watching anything, not listening to something else that is not schooling. The same with the TV, with the cellular. You need to concentrate in these three classes, which are very heavy, very hard to test. You're going to fail the testing if you don't study and put time. For every hour that you spend at school, you need to spend 3 hours at home studying. And watching TV and listening to radio that are not positive is not the clue. So I'm telling you ahead of time because the school just started. Dinner is downstairs. Be careful with the fish when you eat. Take a small bite. Because I'm going to bed.
All right.
Now, TurboTax has CPAs who can review your return with you.
I checked it, ma'am. You're good to go.
See, nothing to be afraid of at all.
Ow. Ow. Intuit TurboTax. Fiverr presents How to Entrepreneur. Got an idea? Isn't that cute? My little sister has ideas. You have a business to build. So get a logo, make a website, market it, promote the out of it, cancel the brainstorm. The only one who can do this is you, and you're empowered to get it done. So how do you do it? Preach it to your mom, preach it to your ex, preach it to your roommate, just to anyone who will listen. But definitely don't pitch it to these guys. Woo the customer. Schmooze the customer. Oh, and this guy? Just ignore him. Beats the gurus. Beats the trust fund kids. Beats the tech bros. Nice scooter, yo. Change the business. Change the industry. Change everything. And while you're at it,
Save the rivals. Above all, and this is important, do. Because thinking big is still just good news.
Good evening from New York. I'm Dan Rather with news, analysis, and commentary. President Trump on Tuesday says he wants to focus on 5 subjects in his first State of the Union speech. We'll close tonight with my thoughts about the State of the Union, the speech itself, what it does and does not mean, and the test of that union posed by the looming showdown between the chief executive and the rule of law. But let's begin with President Trump's 5 topics. Not health care, not climate change, not the environment, not criminal justice reform, not social justice, not education, no mention of a falling American lifespan. Never mind 3 million people who no longer have health insurance. Instead, you will hear about President Trump's tremendous strides on immigration, or fittingly, against immigration. The White House last week said it's time to lower legal immigration, and the president's deportation record is not much better or worse than President Obama's. But you will not hear about shattered families or military veterans cast out by the country they served, or last week's report that the government is now hunting people by tracking license plates in real time with a database of 2 billion license plate photos. Or the federal officials now demanding that bus passengers show their papers in America. Bus passengers being asked to show their papers. You will not hear about the impact on communities or the economy, but you will hear about the Trump economy, as world leaders did at Davos on Friday.
After years of stagnation, the United States is once again experiencing I got a theory. Has added more than $7 trillion. I think the fate gathered up my thoughts and put them together to bring me back. Business confidence, manufacturing confidence, maybe something like that. They have been in many decades.
So let's unpack the Trump economic miracle. Stocks are all-time highs, as I have shown you. Unemployment is falling, as it has before. But job creation last year was the weakest it has been since the Great Recession. Wait. That point on the right, that's job creation under President Trump. The rest is under Mr. Obama. Now let's talk manufacturing jobs. Again, that point on the right is President Trump. The rebound point is shortly after Mr. Obama took office. Job numbers cherish under Obama today, and I'll cherish you. Some new American people.
All right, we gotta stay together.
President Trump
That's what we have to do.
America's growth actually lags the rest of the world. World's domestic product grew 2.3% last year.
Is that what the Fates told you?
3.7%. Meanwhile, rising prices and insurance premiums threaten to gobble up oil and is back solely the natural for most people
That's not cherishing.
On another big issue in the State of the Union speech,
You didn't disappear.
international trade. Canada and other countries are already locking up deals with each other since the U.S. shut down the Pacific trade policy. Now the president will tell us that the are expected to mean higher prices for Americans and fewer jobs. Oh no. The president will tell us of the powerful stimulus cut with his plan to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. He will not reveal that roads and bridges which now are free may very well cost tolls and fees paid to private companies down the road. And finally, there is the ultimate trump card, as he told Davos: national security, fear, endless war.
I am pleased to report that the coalition to defeat ISIS has retaken almost 100% of the territory once held by these killers in Iraq and Syria. There is still more fighting and work to be done and to consolidate our gains. We are committed to ensuring that Afghanistan never again becomes a safe haven for terrorists who want to commit mass murder to our civilian populations.
Let's be clear. The military defeat of ISIS should be applauded by Americans of any and all parties. But defining national security narrowly does not make us safer. ISIS had no brigades on our beaches. White supremacists killed 18 people in America last year, double the year before. Gunmen opened fire in 11 of our schools this year alone. New poisons are being pumped into our air. WMDs deregulated by the Trump Environmental Protection Agency. Storms hit us more frequently, more powerful. Drought and wildfires, torrential rains and mudslides, these too are threats. This too is the State of the Union. And when you hear President Trump in his speech proclaim the end of ISIS in Syria,
New Dr. Teal's body lotion
that the administration just announced thousands of people will stay there, fighting the Syrian military, its Iranian allies, and its Russian allies.
You can't even wait 6 months for me. 6 months.
Today says it's a liberal impulse to push
So I knew you was black. That don't make no
it's a
sense.
conservative one.
Look at that kid. Like, look at your kid. Look what you doing. You don't love me, man. You do not love me because you would never continuously do that. You would not do that.
I do love you.
Come on, man. You can't tell me. Like, you act like we want friends at one point in
It's
time.
perhaps the greatest threat to the state of the Union.
Everyone, this is Desiree.
As
Welcome,
we should
Desiree.
know by now. What history teaches about hard power, military power, is that they are limited. From the ancient Greeks and Romans, from the ancient Chinese and Persians, to the
When it
modern
comes to
examples of
2-month-old David
Vietnam and
Diedrich,
Iraq.
you
But let's
are
make
the
this clear. Hard power has its temptations and illusions, but the reality is filled with danger. Hard military power has its limits. Overreach, overconfidence, out of balance reliance on sheer military power is perilous for societies.
Oh, which wire?
At this moment in history, and ever since World War II,
how good of a
America's military has been arranged the strongest the world has ever known.
Have you ever had sexual intercourse with any of the men Celeste and April claimed they've seen you coming in and out of your home? You
The
said
U.S.
no.
military is engaged in an estimated 60 countries, including SEAL being tied down in the quagmire of Afghanistan for 17 years. Now, we have sworn treaty obligations to defend many countries, ranging from Japan and elsewhere in Asia to Israel and most of Europe.
You said
The
no.
drain on American blood and treasure is enormous. There's serious questions about whether we can sustain this without wrecking our economy and our national security. In deciding how to deal with the challenge, we obviously need to be steady, sensible, and smart.
Telling the truth.
Rightly or wrongly, justified or not, most Americans and many people around the world doubt that America currently has a president who provides leadership along those lines.
You said no. The lie detector test determined we're telling the truth.
We can and should be proud of our fellow Americans in military service, while at the same time being acutely aware that there is a limit to what they and the power they represent can do.
No, the lie detector test determined
that the exercise of hard power is seldom effective and greatly more risky without the use of soft power. Diplomacy and dollars can build the strongest of safeguards for our future. The rubble left by hard power in World War II, after all, was built upon by dramatic use of soft power in the United Nations, and subsidizing the rebirth of our enemies, Germany and Japan, with the Marshall Plan, which eventually made them stalwart allies. Let's remember, the Marshall Plan put in place in the wake of World War II was controversial at the time, but it got put into being with bipartisan support. And the Marshall Plan, soft power, helped to ensure peace for more than half a century. Compare that with today, when the State Department is in effect being hollowed out. And going forward, if we continue to hollow out our soft power abilities, well, what does that tell you about the necessity that's likely to arise for the use of more military power? It may be coincidence that a president who does not believe in soft power always had enough economic power and privilege to ensure that he never needed soft power in his own life and business. And now the Trump administration is engaged in wholesale, unilateral disarmament of America's soft power. Not just on diplomacy and foreign aid, also on trade with other countries, on immigration, refugees, even tourism. Squeezing global institutions of soft power, the United Nations, the International Space Station, and so on. It is a vision of soft power consistent with the Trump administration's vision of America. It reflects how they see the Union. Strong not through diversity and education, but by military might. Surrendering to the axis of fear and xenophobia. In Davos, Mr. Trump advertised America as the land of low taxes and the home of deregulation. That may make our country great for foreign investors, but it does not establish a model anyone ought to emulate. Instead, and we have to face it, it's not a matter of opinion, it's a fact. We have a president whose notion of soft power, his vision of the Union, has nothing to inspire anyone about America aside from being America. There's no call to rise to something greater, to do the work of working together, a pluribus unum, to support and maintain the brilliantly designed institutions that check our individual power to ensure the fair use of power for all, to build a more perfect union. When I come back, what new revelations about the Russian investigation tell us about the state of the union? I see what we all see. The deep divisions, the endemic injustices, the uncertainty about our future. We have sometimes stumbled, we have sometimes fallen short. But we can review our national purpose if we recognize that what unites us is far greater and stronger than all that divides us. Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all? And we're at a time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history. Now let's talk about this. When a president and his lieutenants are suspected of violating U.S. law to grasp the reins of power, it is the job of law enforcement to do something about it. We look to investigators, prosecutors, and jury members to determine the truth, to stand for the rule of law. We on the sidelines can guess and speculate, debating outcomes we cannot know. Cable news will even sell tickets. But when a president attempts to keep the reins of power by sidelining investigators and prosecutors, intimidating them, it is Congress's job to do something about that. The execution of that job, a vital test, may be the ultimate test of the true State of the Union. Now, President Trump denies that he ordered Special Counsel Robert Mueller fired. But remember, he fired Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. He fired FBI Director Jim Comey, who refused to pledge his loyalty to the president. And he tried to stop Attorney General Jeff Sessions' recusal from the Russia investigation. Just this afternoon, NBC reported that FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, a target of President Trump's public wrath, is stepping aside ahead of his retirement in March. Mr. McCabe, you may remember, was reportedly asked by the president who he voted for and grilled about donations to McCabe's wife's political campaign. This just days after reports that Mr. Trump still talks about getting rid of Mueller's boss, Deputy U.S. Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. That Mr. Trump pushed to make Sessions resign, and that the president now wants a classified congressional memo released trashing top FBI officials who can corroborate Comey's testimony. The Washington Post reports that Mr. Trump hopes the memo will raise questions about those officials and about Rosenstein that will justify removing them, which would, of course, clear the way for Mr. Trump and or his allies to appoint loyal replacements, loyal to them. There are two bills in Congress aimed at protecting Mueller, but we have to face the fact that they're probably pantomimes, dangerous distractions with slim hope of passing. Listen to some of our elected representatives on their sworn duty to uphold the Constitution and take a hard stand in Mueller's defense.
There have been a number of bipartisan bills proposed in the Senate that would attempt to protect the special counsel from firing by the president. And you said in December that, quote, you haven't seen the need for legislation protecting Mueller. Do you see the need now?
It probably wouldn't hurt for us to pass one of those bills.
Do you have confidence in Bob Mueller? Yes, 100%.
I have confidence in Mueller. I have questions about others within the FBI and the DOJ, especially what's come out in these texts.
Would you be open if there is a bill that protects, something? There's a couple of bills in the Senate. One would be having a 3-judge panel review a decision if the president did fire Mueller to see if it was done on fair grounds. Would you be open if that bill is attached to the budget bill? Would you support that? Would you let that go through versus...
I think we should focus on the budget because military needs their funding. Why are we playing other games with something else?
What's your reaction to the president's reported order to fire Bob Mueller? How much does that concern you?
Again, that's New York talk. I look at it strictly as the New York language that they have, which is different than most other people. But
honestly, how is it here? How is that New York talk? I'm curious.
What makes this, if it isn't already, it will, a constitutional crisis is not the potential law-breaking itself. It is that when law enforcement are targeted by the chief executive in this way, those members of Congress you just heard are the last redress offered by our Constitution. But we've been here before, when Congress rose to the challenge during the Nixon period and the widespread criminal conspiracy known as Watergate. President Trump may not even mention the ongoing investigation into whether he and or those close to him conspired with the Russians to influence the election, but we have to consider it in assessing the true state of the Union today. In the months and even years ahead, the state of our country's union may well depend on what these investigations conclude and how we as a people, as a country, react to it. The president can read from his teleprompter script all he wants about grand hopes and plans. But until the questions about Russian influence and interference and the suspected crimes by Americans, including possibly the president, are answered, until that happens, our union will be marked by toxic levels of anxiety and uncertainty. There are, of course, other fault lines running through our nation on racial and religious bigotry, immigration, economic inequality, and education. The list is long. But, wrongly or rightly, questions of possible high crimes in high places are front and center at the moment, and will continue to be until those questions are answered and we know how Congress and the American people rise to the moment. The president can continue to argue that it's really no big deal, all fake news, and a minority of Americans will continue to believe him. But as Abraham Lincoln supposedly once remarked, you can fool some of the people some of the time, you can't fool all of the people all of the time. The multifaceted criminal investigation swirling around the president, his family, and some of his advisors is a big deal. And however it ends, however we end it, will be a driving factor in determining the state of our union, now and possibly for generations to come. My closing thoughts on the State of the Union as a speech to the nation right after this break. I see what we all see. The deep divisions, the endemic injustices, the uncertainty about our future. We have sometimes stumbled, we have sometimes fallen short. But we can renew our national purpose if we recognize that what unites us is far greater and stronger than all that divides us.
Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Why not back up during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all? And we're in a time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history.
Other stories we're keeping an eye on, and think you should. Water shortages around the world are growing. Cape Town, South Africa now expects to run out of water by early April. This major city already is severely rationing water. If the prediction holds, the taps will shut off and residents will line up for rations at distribution points. It would be the first major city to do so. The first, but if present trends on water use hold, it won't be the last. Puerto Rico has announced plans to privatize its electric utility. It needs approval from Washington. 500,000 people in Puerto Rico are still without electrical power more than 4 months after Hurricane Maria. Lest we forget, these are Americans desperate for help, feeling with some justification, forgotten and abandoned. Silicon Valley under siege of a sort as a backlash against tech giants spreads. Facebook announces it wants to get smaller and not so vulnerable to manipulation. Amazon is widely accused of wrecking whole sections of the U.S. economy. Apple is facing investor demands that make its products harder to use by and less attractive to children. Google being damned at home and overseas for some of YouTube's content, and for allegedly exploiting Google's customers' privacy. We're indebted to The Week magazine for pointing some of this out. Now, whether or not any or all of this is justified, the effect of it is to make big tech play some defense. And finally tonight, a closing thought. There's a profound disconnect between the contemporary attention given to State of the Union addresses and their actual impact on history. Over my many years covering these pinnacles of pomp and ceremony on the American political landscape, catnip, especially for those of us who've been charged with filling airtime on television news. Through the years, I've usually found that these spectacles may be full of sound and fury, but they usually end up signifying next to nothing. And the power of these moments, where a president used to grab the unified attention of a nation, has only diminished in the age of fractured media outlets and the constant barrage of instantaneous news cycles. But all that being said, these speeches are not without their importance, for they do serve as a test of sorts for how the public views a president, and perhaps even more significant, how a president wishes to be viewed. And that leads to what we may expect Tuesday night. In many ways, we have already seen plenty of what President Trump thinks. Through tweets and unscripted asides, we've been allowed to take a full measure of a man unbound by democratic norms, basic decorum and language, and many may say even common humanity. I suspect that this will be one of those moments we have seen before, where President Trump attempts to let go of his raucous rhetoric and sticks to a script written for him. I suspect, if read, the speech will sound like one in the mainstream of the modern Republican Party, saying nothing of whether these policies are particularly popular with the population at large. But what we do not know is whether Mr. Trump will remain constrained, or whether, in his delivery, he will betray some of the divisive tone, some of the braggadocio that has made him so controversial. Will there be any olive branches offered, or only briars? In particular, what will the president say about the immigration debate roiling the country? Will there be any sense that he will make a deal, or will he adhere to a hard line? These are the kinds of questions that usually precede a speech of this nature. But we have also seen that just because Mr. Trump says something doesn't mean he will hold true. I do suspect that the expectation game for the president is so low that he may very well pass enough of a bar so that at least some pundits will proclaim he has finally turned a corner and sounds more presidential. Maybe he will fall short of even that bar. What I do expect is that no matter what happens, a few days later, we'll all be talking about something else. That, too, is the state of our union. With that, I'll leave you for this news cycle. The Young Turks is next. On Tuesday, the Young Turks will have a full night of special State of the Union coverage kicking off at 6 Eastern Time. And we'll be back with the news at this same place and time, 5:30 Eastern, every Monday. Until then, Dan Rather reporting. Stay steady. I see what we all see. The deep divisions, the endemic injustices, the uncertainty about our future. We have sometimes stumbled, we have sometimes fallen short. But we can renew our national purpose if we recognize that what unites us is far greater and stronger than all that divides us. Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Why not back up during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all? And we're in a time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history.